Monster World.
Done by
Maryam Rashid.
Hiba and Zahra. In math class, a very strange thing happened. The bell rang at the end of the day and everyone rushed out of the parallel doors, now the skew petals of the flowers, straight home. We went walking on the square bricked ground until we got to the main entrance of the school. We were looking for our friend Anna as we were going to sleep at her house. It looked like she had forgotten us. As we were waiting for Anna, we sat on the pavement that looked like a line segment. Zahra pointed at the air and said, "Look, there's a ray in the air." The ray was pointing to the school. We kept following it until we found ourselves in front of a door we had never noticed before. It had a rectangular sign that said, "Do not come in, teachers only."
We didn't think twice. We pushed the door open and we were astonished of what we saw. Everything around us was cartoon, even us. We were too distracted to see all the right-angled large papers that had the answers for the exams, tests, quizzes, and even job quizzes that we would take. When we did see it, we were going to cry from happiness. Then Maryam said,
Bye-bye bad grades and hello A+.
We started folding the papers into obtuse triangles and stuffing them in our pocket. But suddenly we heard the voice of our teacher, Mrs. Taylor, behind us. We started running, but somehow our legs intersected together and we fell on the floor. Mrs. Taylor made us sit on the adjacent angled desks in the corner of the room to do extra math work. We sat down and looked at the clock. It was 5:15. Zahra realized that the clock made an obtuse angle and she told Mrs. Taylor and she gave her 5 extra marks on her math test. Hiba whispered,
"Look at that trapezoid tile that moves."
Mrs. Taylor left the room and we picked up the tile and saw that it led somewhere. There were lots of staircases, so we chose one of the passages where the steps were shaped as acute angles. The stairs led us to a room. However, as soon as we entered the room, the door disappeared. There were no other doors or windows, so we started knocking on the perpendicular lined wall to see if there was another secret passage.
We looked under every single test and quiz papers, and luckily Hiba found a doorknob that was shaped like an octagon. We turned the handle. The passage led us to the principal's office. We opened the door, and the principal's head was shaped like a huge pentagon. We started laughing and got really red in the face. All of a sudden, as she began yelling at us, her face began changing shapes, from a pentagon to a hexagon to a heptagon, and finally to an octagon. The principal snapped her fingers, and we were put into a jail that had lines instead of bars. As Miss Taylor woke us up, her head formed a vertical angle. We had totally forgotten that we had a math test. When she placed the paper on our desks, it formed a supplementary angle. Of course, we all aced the test, and when we checked our pockets that evening, we found empty papers.
Last but
Not
least,
the
end.
Glossary: parallel and skew.
Square and line segment.
Ray and rectangle.
Right angle and obtuse triangle.
Intersect adjacent angle.
Angle and trapezoid.
Acute angle, perpendicular lines.
Octagon and pentagon.
Hexagon and heptagon.
Line, vertical angle, supplementary.